Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Upkeep Pledge Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to unmatched value and unwavering support for our customers and the community at large. Today, we have my friend of many years, a industry expert in the realm of maintenance reliability, specifically root cause analysis. We have Mr. Bob Latino, who's got approximately 40 years approximately in the business. He's a well-known name. He's been a friend of Upkeep for a long time, friend of our CEO, Ryan Chan. And we're just so glad to have you, Bob, today on the podcast. How you doing?
Thanks for the invite, Brian. I really appreciate it. And, we appreciate what you all do for the industry as well, especially coming into the industry and making the splash that you have over there, and the way you go about valuing your customers and your partners. It's great.
It's everything to us. I was just talking to JD Solomon yesterday, and we actually talked about you in the episode. But
Can I defend myself?
No, it was all good things. It was all good things. But I was just explaining to him, kind of say the same thing to you, is like, Upkeep is just super hyper focused on customer success. That is like everything that we're doing. Any way, any screws, any levers that we can turn or pull to ensure customers have the most amount of success possible is what we're doing, what we're after. And this program, this ambassador program of connecting industry to CMMS and our customers is part of that.
Yeah. And it's not, what's refreshing about you all, especially the youth, is it's genuine, and it's not just a slogan. Sometimes you peel the onion, you hear about all that stuff, and then you go behind the curtains and you say, well, that's kind of like a Facebook family.
Sure.
On Facebook, I look great, and everybody, in the background, they're all got issues.
Oh yeah, not here. And I'll be honest, part of the reason why I was so excited to join the Upkeep team as a full-time employee, I consulted for them for about a year prior, is because their company values align with my actual values.
Yeah.
I've been just like you. I've been out in the the thick of it, in the field, in trades and in industry where you don't have a lot of the things that companies like Upkeep provide for you, particularly a well-balanced work environment with life and your professional career. But aside,
it's refreshing because it's a place where your word matters.
sure, yes, very much so. And before we get into any more craziness, Bob, please tell us who you are, your background, and ultimately Prelical.
Okay. Mine, I say that reliability is in my DNA, and I'm not really far off of that. My story and my family's story starts with our father, who was considered a pioneer in reliability. In 1972, he established the first corporate R&D reliability center for a chemical company, a global company called Allied Chemical, which eventually bought Honeywell. And his research focused on equipment, process, and human reliability. I emphasize human because so many people struggle with that even today, is that they were doing that 50 years ago, and looking at human performance and organizational improvement, that kind of thing, understanding decision making and reasoning. What he did was he set up um, equipment, process, and human reliability. He set up reliability infrastructure across the corporation. I think they had about 300 plants. They ended up, setting up the individual departments within. And think about, I know most of the audience is going to be too young to remember this, but they were doing data collectors, vibration analysis, infrared, eddy current testing. They were doing all that in the 70s.
Right.
And when you think back at, nobody knew what reliability was and what it took to convince a major corporation to go ahead and fund an R&D group in that area. My father was just always fascinated with the airline industry. And he said, how can these planes be so reliable and my manufacturing plant is not?
Right.
and he was over maintenance and engineering at a large facility. So he got that ended up being his sandbox. He got to be able to test his ideas by taking those principles from aviation and applying them into a manufacturing plant. And it started showing phenomenal results to the point that they allowed him to go ahead and set that department up.
That's
So
awesome.
then in 1985, I guess it's a myth to people like me and people today that he had his magic number of for retirement of age plus years of service. And in 1985, he bought his department out of the corporation,
Hmm.
and because it had become at that time the corporation had made it was corporately funded, the R&D group, but then they decentralized it so that they said we've been supporting this for 13 years, so it's about time that we go ahead and let the plants take it over
Gotcha.
as a charge to the plant. So he exited in '85. He started his own company, and in 2019. Well, we were a family business, so there's 5 children involved. My father unfortunately passed in 2007, and the 5 of us kids ran the business. Ken, my younger brother, I'll explain later. He's with me now. I'm with him now. But the we had three of our brothers and sisters were aging out. So in 2019, they wanted to retire, and we just decided to go ahead and sell the company.
Right.
Uh, and then me and my younger brother were the ones who were not of that age. I'm close, but Ken's not as close. And Ken had started his own, just a one man show, Frelicle. And if he was on here, I would rid him just as bad because nobody can pronounce it. Say, what the hell is Frelicle? Where'd that come from? I say it's a result of alcohol and low marketing budget, but he says he says the merging of practical and reliability.
Okay.
I still don't get it. I said, if I write those 2 words down, I can take a third, and another third. I said, that's very complicated. So Ken started Prelical, and I joined him to have an umbrella for us to be able to do the same type of work we were doing before. It's just that I like to tell people there's a freedom that comes with not really having a brand anymore, in the sense that I like to think that we're carrying the flag for RCA as an occupation,
Right.
because any investigative occupation has the same steps.
Sure.
Everybody's got an acronym to have a commercial distinction with that, but in terms of having not having to defend or compete in things like that, but just going out and doing the steps of a proper investigation, no matter where it's at.
Right.
So I there's the same freedom comes with I'm able to do work that I like to do work now, the work I like to do with the people I like to do it with,
Right.
and we're just having fun now. So
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I don't believe I've met your brother, but I have investigated when you and I first met 3 or 4 years ago. I did look into your father, and that is quite an amazing thing. He has a book too, doesn't he? Or another book about him or something?
he wrote a book in 1980 called "Strive for Excellence: The Reliability Approach."
Yeah. Okay.
If you've seen our book, I
Yes.
think you've seen one of our books, the latest one with the baby on the front.
Yes.
Well, what we did was we took the exact same cover that was on my father's book in 1980, and we as a memorial we used that on our cover.
Awesome. It's cool talking. Like, I know you and we first met talking about human performance and the effects of human performance in the workplace, whether it's maintenance, whether it's safety, whether it's reliability, it doesn't matter. And it was such a neat thing. And, we've had a lot of conversations like that, but, I wanted to ask, when it comes to root cause analysis, and I know I've been a part of facilitating RCA and even being a technician in an RCA, and I can say that the level of preparedness of that event or evolution and the steps within each evolution wildly different from organization to organization. I've been in where the smartest technician tells you what's wrong, and that's what it was. Or I've been where the plant manager says, well, no, that's not what happened. I saw it, and this is what the problem was. And I know you know that too. um, but can you speak to a little bit the importance of root cause analysis and its facilitation?
Well, it's, first of all, I don't know if I'm the term RC, root cause analysis, as an acronym.
Sure.
It sucks. I don't know if I can. Maybe you can edit that out if that's
No, it's fine. We like reality, Bob. That's why you're on here, man.
because it's a misnomer. And the problem is that if I ask anybody, no matter what they're doing to problem solve, they're going to call it root cause analysis. So you've
Sure.
got 5 whys competing with a discipline logic tree, competing with a bar napkin written with a pen. But all of those, they'll call it root cause analysis. And that's, when people would ask me who our biggest competitor was, I says, my competitor is our prospects and what they consider RCA to be. That's the biggest competitor that we have.
Yeah.
Because if you think RCA is everything is 5 whys, and believe me, a lot of people characterize all RCA as 5 whys, and the cons of it, they'll say, well, it's all RCA is linear. It ends with one root cause.
No.
Why is a narrow question, which I agree with all of that. So, but if you believe that RCA, 5 whys is an RCA technique, then there's a different purpose you're citing that definition, because it's a mischaracterization.
Sure.
All RCA is not 5 whys.
Right.
And I've never seen anybody in my career using 5 whys for any type of serious investigation, because how many NTSB press conferences you go where they're showing us, hey, we did a 5 whys. So I'm not knocking 5 whys as it doesn't have its place, but its capabilities don't lend itself to serious and complex failures.
Sure.
Certainly for defect elimination, using it for the chronic things that happen in the field, because you want people just to peel the onion more than the obvious,
Right.
and be able to drill a little bit deeper.
Right.
But if you're moving towards evidence-based RCAs, like you were just talking, the CEO says this, or the millwright says this. We're taking hearsay as fact,
Right.
and oftentimes that's it's unfortunately that's good enough in a lot of places.
Right.
And I don't blame people who do crappy analyses as much as I do the people that accept them.
Sure. Sure.
We do a lot with leadership. We try. I can't say it always works, but leaders don't generally, and I consider leaders as whoever you're presenting your findings to. They generally don't know what a good RCA looks like anyway. They may pay for the training and then wash their hands of it and say, I did a good managerial therapy thing. You went out there and I gave you the money to do the training. Go do it.
Right.
They don't know what they're learning. And in that capacity, that when somebody comes and presents something to them, they should be educated enough to be able to be critical of that analysis and sift out if they stop too short. Because
Right.
if you're blaming somebody, you stop too short. If you've got a whole analysis done on hearsay and you don't have any evidence to back it up, then leaders should be aware of that.
Right.
And they should send you back to the drawing board, because if you want to raise the bar with your RCA quality, then start rejecting them because they're less than the quality you deserve.
Right.
So the variability with what RCA is a real problem, and the characterization by a lot of people that all RCA is the equivalent capacity and capability of 5 whys. It's just that's a common paradigm that people accept.
Right. And, it's one thing you said about like training, washing your hands of it. There's a big difference between training / learning something and then applying it, right? And understanding its application. You know, you could sit me down. I don't know anything about computer coding, and you could put me through a PowerPoint on computer coding, and I could click through it and say, "Oh yeah, I know a couple acronyms, blah blah." And then you said, "Okay, now go code this robot." I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I have no frame of reference. I have no application knowledge. And I think just like many things in trades and industry and maintenance, you have to have application knowledge. And that's a huge, right? And then one other thing you said was the 5 whys being, you know, not always the best option. I mean, I think about failures that have so many contributing factors,
Yeah.
like tens of contributing factors for one failure mechanism that led to a failure mode, right? And it's like, you can't, it's just not possible. There's too much information to try to sift through, and asking 5 questions is not going to get you there.
Yeah, I mean, that came out of Toyota a long time ago. So, yeah, I know a lot of people who thrive on 1 why analysis. I don't know why it's 3 why, 10 why. Who the hell knows why?
Yeah.
But I think it's another misnomer. And you were talking about practical application. Is that I don't have to know. I don't really care what the bad outcome is in any organization that I go to, because the what you're doing to be able to go ahead and solve it, the thought process is going to be the same whether I'm working at a port or a terminal, whether I'm working in a chemical plant, whether I'm working at a high school, whether I'm trying to figure out with Homeland Security some counterterrorism thing, or why a package is late to UPS.
Right.
It doesn't matter. The way you think through it is the same. So I'm not really in the mechanical business.
Sure.
We're in the business of helping people think through why undesirable outcomes occur,
Sure.
and they happen to call it RCA.
Right. And what I meant by application is the application of doing a real root cause analysis, not like you have to know everything about the machine, but the application of what you're like, if I go through training for a root cause analysis and it's a PowerPoint and someone says, "Oh, you've been trained." It's like, no, I haven't. Right.
Yeah.
I have no applicable knowledge to conduct any form of root cause analysis or be a part of a root cause analysis.
I've made a career out of ignorance, Brian. So I help all of us that are ignorant, because my career is about facilitating and asking questions. Because I'm
Yeah.
not, I tell people straight up, when you call people like us in, I don't have your answer. Your answer is in your team.
Right.
I'm just the person who helps get it out of them in a very disciplined, evidence-based manner
Right.
to
And
do.
that's huge. Just the word facilitator. Most
Yeah.
people who say they do root cause analysis, that term never comes up.
Well, I mean, think about when you put the top engineer, the failure occurs in this engineer's operating area, and you assign the all knowing engineer, and the technical expert is the lead on the team. Well, first of all, he or she thinks that this is why do we have to go through this formality? I already know what the problem is.
Right.
And then you have the team members there who say that they're going to never going to listen to me anyway, so I'll just shut up and agree
Right.
because we're just going through the motions here.
Yep.
So that's a rule of ours, at least, is that the if you have anything to lose or gain by the outcome of that analysis, you shouldn't be leading it, because
100%.
your critics will eat your lunch. You
That's
should be
right.
you should be on the team,
Hmm.
but you have to be vetted by that facilitator. On you can't. They're not going to just take you at your word. You have to back it up.
Right. And I've worked in very recently for organizations that uh these engineers would go to factory acceptance testing. You know, they didn't design the machine. They merely chose it and then verified it would do what it should do for our application, right?
Mm-hmm.
And anytime there was a failure, I was the head of maintenance for this company, and anytime there was a failure, these people would always come out of the woodwork and go, that didn't happen. That's not how that works. I verified. I went to factory FAT. I did all that. It's like, well, that's great, but this did happen. Now let's all come together, get everybody, and then let's figure it out, right? I can't just go, "Oh, you said that can't happen. Close down the books. He's got it. Move on." Like, that's what it is. But it's a true thing. It happens all the time.
Well, I love it when you get those kind of folks, the know-it-alls, and they say, "Yeah, I already know. We don't need this team. I know what the problem is." I say, "Well, I said, obviously you don't. This is the fourth time it's happened this year."
Yeah.
so, so
Yeah.
if you if what you know worked, you wouldn't be dealing with this again.
Right. And my next question is like, of these, how often is it the machine and how often is it the human interface or the human experience or a human process?
Well, it's a loaded question because you can't have one without the other. Well, I mean, the way that the root systems work out is that if, from the facts that you start with, just like a crime scene, if you could put the tape around wherever the failure occurs,
Sure.
you're gonna find anomalies there, and you're gonna have to start asking, well, how could this have come to be?
Sure.
Then all those hypotheses, the evidence that you collect is going to say that they're true or not. As you keep digging through the physics of failure, and you get past that bearing, and you get past that it's fatigue, and you get past that it's high vibration, and then you're going to get into that. Well, it was misaligned. Okay, well, typically when you're misaligned, it's there's a human involvement because somebody aligned,
Right.
right? It was misaligned from installation or it was misaligned in operation. A lot of times that's there's you will come across, if you keep that drilling down, you will come across human involvement, errors of omission or commission by the human being.
Sure.
And if you stop and you blame people for making a bad decision at the time, then that's really a shallow cause analysis. That's not a root cause analysis. And you're weaponizing RCA to the point that nobody's going to help you in the future anyway.
Right.
So if you're truly looking at a holistic RCA, your whole goal is not to deal with the outcome of the decision. Your whole goal is to understand the intent of the decision.
Hmm.
So that person aligning feeds their family with a check they get from that facility. They did not go to work that day and say, "I'm really going to screw up the place today because,
Sure.
because I'm going to misalign this and all
Right.
sorts of stuff is going to
Right.
happen." They typically will have great intent, and they will their whatever their belief system is that they're doing it right for that situation is wrong.
Sure.
So maybe somebody else retired and they got OJT for training, and then they didn't have any formal in service.
Right.
So they learned bad habits from someone else, or maybe the equipment that you have is antiquated, and they do that, or maybe the procedures that are in place are obsolete because we've got new technology in and we never updated the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they work double shift and they're fatigued to a point. So these are all the things you have to look at the context of the decision maker in the moment that they were making the decision,
Right.
because they typically did not intend for that outcome to occur.
Sure.
Or what made them think it was the right thing to do? And
Yep.
and another big one is that they likely have been taking that shortcut for a long time,
Sure.
as well as other people. Because anytime somebody is time pressured to do anything, the go to is going to be a shortcut.
Right.
So and then oftentimes we're patted on the back for the shortcut because we've saved production time, and then that's all good till it's not. And then the one time that you do have a failure, then you don't get a pat in the back anymore. You got to shoe up your
Yeah.
back, and then you can go to a hero from a hero to a zero in a matter of seconds with the same decision,
Right.
just be, just because the conditions have changed.
Right.
One condition. I mean, people won't remember the Challenger, but the Challenger Space Shuttle Challenger way back in '86, exact same thing. Is that flawed O-ring that ended up causing that flawed O-ring was there from the first mission. It flew 51 missions. The only thing that was different on that day that it blew up was that it was 36 degrees Fahrenheit in Florida, and that the O-ring lost its elasticity. Had it been 30 degrees on any other launch, it would have happened then. So
Right.
that was a vulnerability that was just uncovered because of the temperature.
Hmm.
And that happens in our manufacturing all the time, is that
Right.
when certain conditions, say you got a big order and we're going to go ahead, we're going to run that order and it's going to, we're going to run the equipment over design, right? And then we're going to be surprised that all these failures start occurring.
Yep. Very, very, very common. The needs of today outweigh the availability of the future, right? Yeah.
But to your point, you're always going to come to a decision maker, and then the key to an RCA is getting beneath that, understanding the why, and you're gonna uncover all those organizational system flaws. You're going to find that the procedures or policies have changed, or you never taught them how to do it right, or we condoned that type of activity in the past, and supervision kind of overlooked it, and so we were making that activity acceptable.
Right. Or
Um,
there was some form of design change recommendation to eliminate the failure mechanism altogether,
yeah.
but no one wanted to do it or pay for it or couldn't.
Well, and we find a lot these days that you get from a purchasing standpoint that you're finding that purchasing getting bonuses for the
Reducing cost.
lower cost, and your maintenance costs are going up, and nobody's putting the correlation to that because
Sure.
we're introducing defects into the system, and it's based on an incentive system.
Right.
So we need to, from that long-winded scenario, you're going from the physics of failure, always going to be a decision maker. So we call that physical, human, and then latent. The latent are going to be all those system flaws.
Right.
So if you're doing true root cause analysis, you're getting past the broken stuff, you're getting past the blame, and you're understanding how how systems influence decision making.
Right.
And that's a whole different social science realm of, when you look at the physics of failure, that's where engineers thrive, but they suck at the social sciences. And
Yeah.
I can tell you from the social scientist side, they suck at physics. So
Yeah.
having a well-rounded person to be able to facilitate this, that understands and appreciates both realms, is really a plus. It's a key to this.
Sure. It's almost as if you really can't have an effective process without that correct person, right? Because if you it also seems that it makes sense to have them be outside of the organization, right? Not having preconceived notions, not having an attachment to anything, not having an ego in the game, allows for a much clearer
Yeah.
assessment of both sides of this, or all 10 sides of a failure.
Well, and you don't have your hand in the game of politics either, right?
Sure.
And a lot of people, when you get into that, I really don't even prefer to know people's titles when I go into those things, because I really don't care.
Right.
You're there to collect evidence, and I don't care who you are. I'm not going to take it at face value because you told me so.
Right.
Say how well does that go over in court? They say, well, Harry told me so.
We don't know who Harry is.
That that don't work. Well, even if we did, Harry's got
Yeah.
to have, if you're that confident, then you've got to have some evidence to back it up.
Right. Yeah. So from your experience, how many of the customers that you have or have had actually take the recommendations or the analysis that you provide and systematically address it in a positive way? And how many just go, "Hey, thanks, we got it from here"?
I mean, it's a good question, and my answer is probably not going to be what people would like to hear. I think
But even better.
I think it was the American Society for Training and Development. I don't know how many years ago, but they said about 20. They said at that time it was about $65 billion a year was spent on industrial training, and about 20% of it was ever applied. And that fits with being 38 years into this business, and what we see is that 2 out of every 10 will actually go out and produce the results of this.
Wow.
Because if you do this well, even if you don't do it well. The,
You just got to do it.
well, I mean, it's self-funding. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go into paper mills and steel mills and you look what they spend a month on unexpected failures, and and going out and saying, what is 10 or 20 grand in investing in root cause analysis? I mean,
Right.
it's lunch,
Right.
God's sakes. So the opportunities are there. It's just that you have to, having proactive leadership helps, because if you have a CEO or a plant manager who thrives on the crisis management, where the goals are to be able to respond faster and fix the equipment. It used to take me 4 hours, now it takes me two, and that's a success.
Right.
A progressive management is going to ask, why are these mechanics getting so good at fixing it?
Right.
That should be the question. Is
Sure.
not that we're fixing it faster, but why are we getting so many opportunities to fix it?
Right.
So true. And I can't give you a name of a company, which is a sad state after 38 years of somebody that thrives on using RCA proactively, because your regulatory drivers encourage you to do it reactively, and most plants, manufacturing facilities will always have triggers, but those triggers are incident based. So they're going to say, if I lose 4 hours of consecutive production, or if I injure somebody or have a fatality, those, then we're going to do the RCA.
Yep.
Well, what about all those chronic failures? Say conveyor conveyor rollers, and on their individual thing that you might be down 10, 15 minutes. What does a conveyor roller cost you? $50 maybe. But you do have lost production time. You
Sure.
have the 15, even though it might be 15, 20 minutes, yet
Manpower standing by that's being paid, right?
and materials.
Yeah. Lost, missed opportunity, customer impact, all those things.
Yeah, I mean, we had a mining company, open pit mining, and miles of these conveyors. That type of thing was happening. And on its individual occurrence, nobody cares, right? But when you add up how many times a year they happen, if they happen 1,000 times a year, and they were costing you $300, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Death by 1,000 cuts, right?
But it's hidden in plain sight, right? Because it doesn't reach a trigger level, right? And therefore nobody's gonna. It's a cost of doing business. It gets a cost of living increase every year.
Sure.
Now, if you really want to go to full blown proaction, then I don't know why companies, they have to do, high hazard companies at least have to do the FMEAs, the risk assessments,
Sure.
by the OSHA PSM standards. So if you go and you look at that, you say, well, why aren't we doing an FMEA and then taking a Pareto cut of that and saying 20% of these potential failure modes are costing us 80% of our risk?
Always. The 80/20 rule is huge.
And then there's no reason you can't do a root cause analysis on a high risk.
Sure.
I'd much rather be doing RCAs on high risk than high consequences.
Sure. Yeah. It goes back to like high probability, high impact, high probability, low impact, low probability, high impact, and low probability, low impact, right? We've got to be able to classify these things and go after them. And like you said, 20% of it is making up 80% of it.
It is. And then if you've ever followed the manufacturing game and the Ledet family, and you look at defect elimination, and that's a different realm, because defect elimination is just employee engagement, and that's going out in the field and making sure that you're in an unvetted situation. You want people to be candid, just like me and you are being candid here. And you say, tell me what gets in the way of you doing the best job that you could do.
Sure.
Because what happens most of the time is that they've told people before, and that nothing ever gets done about it. So they quit telling you.
Right.
And so they underreport, which which is warranted given their situation. So they underreport. When you underreport, your leadership thinks everything's okay.
That's right.
And that's a sign when you don't have that such reported. That's a sign something's wrong. Right? That's the red
It, It reminds me of like how when companies have the safety days, this is how many days we've been without an incident. It's like, well, that's great, but that doesn't mean you have an open line of communication where things are being reported correctly and appropriately and follow-ups are being conducted. It just means that no one lost a limb or got hurt or had a missed time incident for that day or that week or that year,
Uh,
um, which
that's
is crazy.
that's a big issue in the safety world right now. There's kind of a divide in the safety world between different safety approaches, but they call it target zero or zero harm, and that seems admirable on the front side that you
Sure.
would want, but the reality is that it's unrealistic. You're
That's right.
never have zero harm.
That's right.
Once you set a metric like that, it sets itself up to be manipulated.
Right.
So no one wants to be the person to mess up the metric. So when somebody does legitimately get hurt, they don't want it to be on their record. It may affect their performance appraisal,
Yep.
those kind of things. So that's what that drives under reporting,
Right.
which makes you less safe. When
Right.
you drive that, again, I personally would I like zero harm as an aspiration, but not a goal,
Sure.
because I used it here locally with two hospitals. Say you have two hospitals here that compete with each other, and somebody's got the big ass banner out there that says, zero harm is our patient, zero harm for our patient safety is our number one goal. The other people say we're only going to kill 6 people this year. So when you put a tolerance on it like that, it's obvious where you're going to go.
Sure.
You'll never get to zero, but I don't think anybody really believes that you will. But I'd rather shoot for zero than for 6.
Right. That's
And
right.
then, and you shouldn't tie performance appraisals or rewards or incentives like that. You shouldn't tie it to things like that. Just have it as an aspiration.
Mm.
We're not willing to take a tolerance on it, but it can't stop. It can't shouldn't stop us from striving for it.
Right. So many people do put a performance metric on that. I know some very, very good safety professionals that mean so well, and the plant shop floor adore them. And they're not held to any real meaningful metric other than how much lost time is there. And it's just crazy. But I wanted to say one thing to what you had mentioned about defect elimination and the communication, the candid communication and things. And in the past, I've written many, many services, procedures, all these things on the machines that I personally have worked on and all those stuff, right? And any time that I would write service work, preventive maintenance work, condition-based maintenance work, the very first task of every task list said, talk to the operator. Ask the operator if there's any anomalies that they've experienced today, whether big or small. Because it does two things, right? It first, one, it builds a relationship, a rapport. You start to bridge a gap between maintenance and operations from the shop floor level. And the operator is going to go, hey, Johnny's coming around to his PM today. I know he's going to ask me if there's any issues that I've seen, whether big or small, whether it's my induced issues, a jam, a stupid thing, maybe it didn't start right away, whatever it is. Now I'm building a relationship. And the second thing is you're starting to build out the failure modes, if you will, of these reoccurring issues, and you're documenting them. And you're also being able to open corrective work orders associated with the things that you're hearing about so they can be followed up on. And now the rapport just gets stronger and stronger between these two people. And then when those things start to get solved and they start to make the corrective repairs and they start to schedule downtimes in symbiosis with operations, the team who does the work out on the floor, they start to see, hey, when I say something, something's actually happening now.
Yeah.
But it's, in my opinion, it starts first at making sure that these people can build a relationship with each other. And I know you know this, but like I was always like, wow, we generated 50 more corrective work orders this week just because the people are talking to each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
crazy.
and that's another thing that you see with RCAs and people that when they want to put metrics for effectiveness, and and they use corrective actions as the metric. They, it's binary in a lot of cases where it's a checklist to say they either did or didn't do the task.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a measure of effectiveness.
Mm-mm.
Your measure of effectiveness is that the task improved the operation
The
somehow.
outcome. Yeah.
So your measure should not be that you did it or you didn't, saying, what got better as a result of doing it,
Right.
because you could have done the wrong task and
Sure.
it didn't work. So
That's
it's not
right.
a,
That's 100% right. I mean, that's what's cool about having people. I mean, essentially with a relationship like that, when I'm a technician, I'm going and I'm talking to the same operators every day on my shift and asking them about the context of the machine. You start to build a little bit of accountability there too, right? I mean, the operator is going to know, hey, this person's coming around, he's going to ask me, I'm going to tell him, let's see what happens.
yeah, I'm really surprised at how often people, I guess they think it's an engineering function to do the RCAs, to conduct them, that
Yeah,
they don't include the crafts. I mean, I think it's mandatory that the craft should be, and it's harder to get operators and operations involved, but it would be great to get operations as part of that, so that you represent all the different perspectives.
sure. Well, they view it like like going back to the very first thing that we talked about is the conception that root cause analysis or failure, whatever you want to call it, is has to be a technical thing. That's what everybody thinks in their head. Oh, and a piece of equipment failed, you got to have an engineer look at that. They got to figure out what actually happened, right? But we
And
know the reality is it's far from that. It's a story. When an equipment fails, it tells you a story leading up to, during, and after. There's a whole story that's played out, and we have to be investigating that story from its very first inception to when it happened to what happened after. And I remember having mandatory rules with certain pieces of equipment and facilities I've managed where if it breaks, stop, don't touch it. Don't reset. Don't touch anything. Don't do anything. Leave it in its failed state so that
yeah,
we can actually evaluate the true context of its failure. Because often someone will say, this thing's failed 10 times. Okay, cool. What'd you do? Oh, I just reset it, redid this, moved this. And now I say, great, you just killed all the evidence that I have in order to see what could have happened here, you know?
that's the saying I always use is we never seem to have the time and budget to do things right, but we always have time and budget to do it again.
Yes.
You brought up a point that I did this unknowingly. I can't remember what conference, and I know people were talking behind my back about my slip up, but I'm going to slip up intentionally now.
Good.
The difference between RCA and RCFA, because the common understanding and the common belief is that RCA is this mechanical thing, and
Sure.
that's what the root cause failure analysis is. It says it has a mechanical connotation to it,
Sure.
and that's we purposely this is where I slipped up. I said we got the F out, so we took the F out of the RCFA, and when you say root cause analysis, it has a broader appeal to any undesirable outcome,
Sure.
and it's not just I can use it on administrative stuff, I can use it on safety, I can use it on quality. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But that's the when people would ask the difference between RCA and RCFA, that's at least the basis of which we removed the F out of there.
Yeah, you don't see F very often anymore. I mostly I just see RCA. Um, but yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's like if you have a manager or a leader who makes a poor decision, why'd they make that poor decision? What
Yeah,
led them to make a poor decision, right? I mean, it's just there's just so much that can be said about that whole process, you know.
years ago, and this is in one of the books that I wanted my daughter was in fifth grade, and we were I wanted her to learn these types of things anyway, how to, this thought process. But I also wanted to prove that even a fifth grader could do this kind of thing.
Right.
And I gave her the basic training of understanding cause and effect in her world. And I asked her to pick something that bothered her at school, and she picked bullying, which I thought was awesome. And she used our software, and she did her own, Google type of searches to say, why people do what they do. And she did an entire evidence-based RCA based on bullying in school from a fifth grader, and even a local news station picked it up and had her on TV about how she was trying to make a difference at the school. So
Nice.
I think that this type of craft, that this type of thinking, I think it should be in the school system. I think it should be at the high school level,
Sure.
because unfortunately, we find out that people don't have these skills only after they've been involved in manufacturing and then they've had a failure,
Sure.
and they don't possess those skills, because the more skills you have about prevention and proaction like that, is that you will develop a propensity for foresight, to where you won't have those failures. You'll foresee failure coming, and you will take actions to avoid it.
Right. Because you
So
know the outcome.
yeah, and so, I guess for me, I grew up in a household like that.
Yeah.
Everything. We had PMs on our freaking house to do.
Right.
So but I grew up being uh, uh, I was developed about everything was about proaction with our father, and
Sure.
when you develop that skill, and then you go out into the real world, and you're always foreseeing hazards and risks and things like that, and then you wonder why nobody else sees it.
That's right. And talking about just the school in general, like, it's a form of critical thinking, right? I mean, it's being able to take data and facts and then make rational, informed decisions based on what you know and what you have. And I know that is severely lacking in a lot of things in the world too. Um, but as prevention is huge. I mean, just think about the safety, right? The safety aspect of it. Just being somebody who's walking down the street on a sidewalk and you see a car speeding down, maybe it's a 2-lane highway, you see a car speeding down the road, swerving in and out of traffic. Well, the first thing in my mind, I go, I should probably get away from the street a little bit, like that's like the type of proactive thought. And for kids especially, it's huge. It's being able to take manageable risk,
Yeah.
right? And understand the risk associated with actions, with situations, with all those things. And I know I have a 9-year-old daughter, she'll be 10 this year, and she hates when I'm like, hey, you should think about that because this could happen. And then she's like, I'm not always right, but I'm trying to teach her that, hey, we need to be thinking in progression about the things that we're doing. My 4-year-old, he doesn't really care. He's just a fireball. So but my 10-year-old, she's or my 9-year-old, she's getting there.
My my daughter is 21 now, and it took her until 21 to tell me that she appreciated that she.
Least you got it.
Yeah, because, before that, I was the geek, and I was I was the one that she did. Oh God, here comes my dad. Don't please
Yep.
talking that stuff.
Yep. I hear you, Bob.
Or your
Um,
wife, when you go to a Lowe's, and you're chastising the salesperson, and you're going through and say, "Are you going to buy it or not?"
yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. When I go to the hardware store and stuff like that, I try to stick to myself because it's like if you ever watch, there's a show, what's that show called? Has the God, what's his name? I forget his name, but he literally he walks into like a Home Depot and a guy walks up. He's like, "Hi, can I help you?" And he goes, "I know more than you," and just kind of walks away. I'm not saying I'm that person. I'm just saying it's like, you get a lot of mixed information there. But Bob, I just wanted to say, man, I'm so glad that we were able to partner here and talk, and it's been wonderful. We've had an awesome conversation. There's a wealth of gold in here for people who want to understand holistically and the fundamental excellence of root cause analysis and the fluff that comes along with a lot of people who talk about root cause analysis. But I just want to give you the last word. So, Bob, I know your information will be on our ambassador's webpage, but how can people get a hold of you as they're listening to this?
Well, I am I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I would just look up Robert Bob Latino on LinkedIn, and just connect and DM with me in the back, or if you're going to put up the protocol stuff there, the email would be on there. But thanks for the opportunity. Any opportunity I get to help spread the word is that, like I said, I can speak in generalities now and not be defending a brand or anything,
Sure.
but just being able to look at the that RCA is not a task, it's a system.
Sure.
And it feeds into a bigger reliability system so that when people are in the know, you should realize what that bigger system looks like, and that it's not just simply doing a 5 whys or a fishbone or something like that.
Right.
So thanks for the opportunity to be able to go ahead and at least share our opinions on it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's been great, and on behalf of Upkeep, we really appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you on again. I know we'll be talking, and Bob, thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.
Well, I appreciate it. Failure be my business.
All right, man. See you.
All right, thank you.